And the next item of business is a debate on motion 20628 in the name of Megan Gallagher on the desecration of war memorials, Scotland Bill at stage 1. I call on Megan Gallagher, member in charge, to speak. Ms Gallagher.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And if I may begin my remarks by thanking everyone who supported the development of my Members' Bill, particularly the non-government bills team for their exceptional assistance throughout this process, and of course to my wonderful office team. I also want to recognise and pay tribute to the Friends of Dennistoun War Memorial Group. Without their tenacity and commitment to changing the law, I would not be here speaking to this bill today. In August 2018, the newly installed War Memorial in Alexandra Park was petrol-bombed just days after its installation and weeks before its unveiling. I understood the anger and distress this caused because in 2019, a year later, the Duchess Park War Memorial in Motherwell was vandalised. I was the local councillor at the time, and I was appalled to see "scum of the earth" written beside the names of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. The Spanish Civil War Memorial, also situated within the same park, was defaced 2 years later in 2021, rightly prompting condemnation across the community. But sadly, these incidents are not isolated. Desecration of war memorials often occurs during periods of heightened political tension, and the harm caused extends far beyond physical damage. I've raised this in the Chamber before, but the work undertaken by my office in preparation for this bill, that since 1966 there has been roughly 66 attacks on war memorials in Scotland. And although that number appears relatively low, almost 70% have occurred since 2014. These acts strike at community identity and the dignity of those who have served. That sense of injustice, particularly among armed forces and veterans community, led me to bringing forward this bill. The bill, in its current form, seeks to create a specific statutory offence of destroying, damaging or desecrating a war memorial with enhanced penalties on the basis that current law does not adequately reflect the seriousness or impact of these crimes. This is because, at present, war memorials are not given the same consideration and are usually within the same bracket of offence that would equate to desecrating a lamppost or a postbox. I just don't believe that that's right, given their historical, cultural and social significance. As a Members' Bill, it was deliberately narrow in scope, intended to provide clarity and deterrence without over-complication. And I am grateful to the Constitution, Europe, External Affairs and Culture Committee for its scrutiny. Unusually, the committee did not reach a conclusion on whether to recommend the general principles of the bill. Evidence from the Crown Office and the Scottish Government raised significant concerns, including that existing law already shows that such offences to be prosecuted, that sentencing powers would not be increased in practice, and that a new offence would unlikely improve detention, reporting or deterrence. They did, however, from my reading of the report, sympathise with what I was trying to achieve. Incidentally, and as an interesting point to note, that when I did give evidence to the members of the SEAC committee, every single member represented a constituency or a region that had at least one incident of a war memorial that had been desecrated. So this shows that it's not an isolated event in one particular area of the country. The committee also highlighted that courts already take account of community impact and trauma, that proving intent can be challenging and that a maximum sentence of 10 years could, in fact, be lower than current available sentencing powers. So I've taken the decision and I have reflected carefully on this evidence and on my responsibility to bring forward good law. I have also engaged constructively with the Cabinet Secretary, whom I thank for his approach, to explore potential and alternative ways forward in this regard. These include the potential creation of a statutory aggravator, which was also suggested by the SEAC committee.
Ms Gallagher, could I ask you to resume your seat for a second? I have a point of order. Point of order, Cabinet Secretary Angus
Sorry, I was
Robertson.
actually seeking an intervention on Megan Gallagher, if she'd allow at this stage.
Ms Gallagher.
In commending Megan Gallagher for pursuing this issue about which there is cross-party consensus, does she agree with me that the bill process has established that a statutory aggravation is key to legislative success? And given that this is not possible in this bill or the remainder of the session, does she agree with me that all parties across the chamber should commit to legislating at the earliest opportunity for such a statutory aggravation in the new parliamentary term?
Megan Gallagher.
I welcome the Cabinet Secretary's intervention, and I do agree. And I'm glad that this is a discussion that we're having in the Chamber today, where we're able to talk about it openly, and one, of course, which will form part of the official record. But I do, again, welcome the approach that the Cabinet Secretary has taken, but also the way in which we've discussed other potential ideas, such as covering different types of memorials, and of course the review, which he also confirmed to me in a letter dated 26th of January. Whilst I remain absolutely committed to protecting war memorials and tackling the harm caused by desecration incidents, this bill, as drafted, is not the most effective solution. So with the limited time left in this parliamentary session, and mindful that progressing the bill would require significant and unconsulted amendments, I don't believe that it's right to push this to a vote today at stage 1. I don't want Parliament to be divided on what I believe is an important issue, especially when we are divided not necessarily on the principle, but the piece of legislation that's sitting before us. And I would much rather be able to work with all parties, cross-party, to achieve the desired outcome. That's what our armed forces and veterans groups would expect from us. And I'm keen to gather that consensus. And I do believe that if the Scottish Government is true in its word and looks to legislate in this area, or whatever government chooses to legislate in this area, that we could do something positive to reduce the number of attacks on our war memorials. But if I may, Presiding Officer, conclude by speaking directly to the armed forces and veterans groups, who are the custodians of war memorials. Any attack on a war memorial, however large or small, is egregious, it's cruel, it's offensive, it's re-traumatising for everyone and families who have lost a loved one in conflict, or who have served or who are serving themselves. This bill might not be the answer today to prevent the mindless vandalism of war memorials across the country, but I will continue to work hard to ensure better protections are put in place. The brave men and women whose names are etched into stone, who gave their lives for our freedom, deserve nothing less. With that, Presiding Officer, I seek permission not to press my motion before Parliament, and as soon as I return to my seat, will write to the Chief Executive to withdraw my bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Gallagher. Thank you, Ms Gallagher. It is now time to move on to the next item of business. I have a point of order. Patrick Harvey. Mr Harvey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. On a point of order in relation to Rule 9.6.4 of Standing Orders, that once a lead committee has reported, the Parliament shall consider the general principles of the bill, and also in respect of the parts of Standing Orders that define the role of the Presiding Officer in determining any question as to the interpretation or application of Standing Orders. I've been in Parliament for a while now, and I don't recall us ever having a situation where a bill is taken through the entire Stage 1 process and then withdrawn at the very last minute, when members are expecting to have taken that debate forward. Now, the last thing I want is to waste more time than the time that's already been wasted, by the member who's brought this bill through the process.
Members.
But I have been...
Mr Harvey, please resume your seat for a second. Members, we will listen to the member who has the floor, and that is Mr Harvey, and it is not any member that I'm currently looking at sitting on the Conservative benches. Mr Harvey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I have been a member of the lead committee on this bill. My time, the time of my staff, the time of other members and their staff, of parliamentary officials and external witnesses has been taken up not only in taking forward a Stage 1 inquiry into a bill which was palpably unnecessary from the moment I first opened page 1.
Members. Mr Harvey.
But also in preparing for a debate which we expected to take place today and which is clearly not necessary. And now even the member in charge admits that the whole bill is entirely unnecessary. So can I ask?
Members, Mr Harvey, could you please
that the
get
bill
to the
is
point?
unnecessary. So in relation to the two parts of standing orders that I've raised, can I ask if the presiding officer is willing to begin a discussion with the SPPA committee to consider whether the provisions of this Parliament, the standing orders and other rules of this Parliament, are capable of ensuring that Parliament's time and capacity is not wasted in this unnecessary and disrespectful way in future?
Thank you, Mr Harvey. I would respond first of all to Mr Harvey, obviously, before I take another point of order. That is the normal process. So I would say to Mr Harvey that I thank him for advance notice of his point of order, and the rule to which Mr Harvey refers relies on a motion to agree the general principles of the bill being moved by the member in charge of a bill. That has not happened today. In addition, the rules allow that a bill may be withdrawn at any time by the member in charge before the completion of Stage 1. As Stage 1 has not yet been completed, the rules allow the bill to be withdrawn today by the member in charge, which she has indicated that she will do. I would conclude by saying that it is, of course, open to any member to raise concerns about parliamentary procedures with the SPPA committee. I now have a point of order from Megan Gallagher. Ms Gallagher.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I seek your guidance on this because it was a disgusting and disgraceful intervention by Patrick Harvey here. I have not wasted this Parliament's time. I have tried to seek consensus to bring forward a piece of legislation that a veterans group has asked me to bring forward to this place in order to improve the lives of our veterans and armed forces community. I will never apologise for the work that I've undertaken in this field, Presiding Officer, and I hope that Patrick Harvey reflects on his comments this afternoon. But if I may, Presiding
Ms Gallagher,
Officer,
could you please get to the bit that's the point of order?
I will now come to the point that I'm trying to make. The point that I'm trying to make, Presiding Officer, is that I have consulted the Presiding Officer's office. I have also been in contact with the Cabinet Secretary, and I have tried to take business through my Chief Whip. So can the Presiding Officer please advise all members of any wrongdoing that I have undertaken as part of the standing orders, and perhaps to members who don't understand the standing orders, could this perhaps be resent to them so they understand that I have not undertaken any wrongdoing in this part? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Gallagher. The matter indeed was on the business bulletin and was called, and I think that sets forth the position. The other points that the member raised do not amount to a point of order, as I'm sure the member is well aware of. They are debating points. I would now intend that we move on to the next item of business in order to try to preserve some time for the rest of this afternoon's business, which other members may have an interest in, and there will be a short pause before we do so. Thank you.